Well, good morning, everybody. I just want to give you another update today on this powerful super typhoon that is moving toward Taiwan over this weekend. And yesterday, some of the satellite imagery, and this is, of course, the latest data we've got infrared here, just showed one of the most symmetrical tropical cyclones I've ever seen. And it's just amazing to see the sheer display of strength in this system as it moves over very warm water and makes its way toward Taiwan. So the latest updates on this is that it is likely going to start to make a turn before it gets there, and it is expected to weaken significantly. But at 155 knots, this would be considered a Category 5 strength hurricane if it was in the Atlantic, but in the Pacific we call them typhoons. So watching this one carefully, and I'll be honest with you, one of the things that I'll be watching most importantly about it is if it can move far enough north to start to interact with the jet stream that's coming off of Japan, which is here. Because as you know, we've kind of had this narrative going for a while that the northern hemisphere has lost a lot of its momentum in terms of jet stream flow. So anything that can kickstart that, can perturb that, can get it moving, we got to watch for. So it's this. It doesn't look like much. But remember here that the environment that is captured in that hurricane is relatively small compared to the global, the sheer size of the global jet stream. So what I'm watching is this feature, and to the north of it, the behavior of the jet. So notice how wavy and weak the flow is across North America. As we just play this forward, we're just waiting for something to kick that jet stream back into motion. So we've talked all week about how the jet stream is really not extending much off of Japan and through off of China into Japan and out into the open Pacific. We've really got these two branches of the jet, but very weak flow as this large ridge builds here to finish May and start June in the middle part of the country. Now, what we're going to watch for is later, getting past June 4th, 5th, and 6th. This has kind of been the main story this week. If this does, in fact, extend a bit farther, what we do is we end up sending the split closer to the west coast. And this just means that the U.S. kind of jockeys for position of where this ridge is going to be and where the split will be. Because right now, the split is happening after the mountains. That's, of course, thinking west to east. Now it could be happening before the mountains, which would really start to send heat back into the Pacific Northwest and bring northwest flow right into the center part of the country, which the farther you get into June, the better that northwest flow might be for delivering storms. And that's kind of been our narrative going forward here. So as it stands, this pattern still gives us this look, okay? So over the next 10 days, these are precipitation anomalies. So what do we have again? We have weak southwest flow coming in like this. It's not extending and getting out across the rest of the country. So this whole corridor just lights up with storms. We then see this extending into parts of Alberta, into the southern Canadian prairie in places as well. So what you've been watching all week, just put it on repeat for the next 7 to 10 days. You also notice that the plains all the way from Texas, through western Oklahoma, Kansas, getting into Nebraska, the Dakotas, Wyoming, Montana. This whole region is just going to continue to light up every single day with storms. And last night, I was just watching several friends out storm chasing this week, and their Twitter feeds. I was a bit jealous, I'll be honest, just to see some of the structure. I'll post those links in today's written report. But the thing about this is we have already seen the latest drought monitor showing major improvement, in such a large part of our drought-stricken area, and we're going to see more of those storms going through. Meanwhile, you get much east of about the 100th meridian, and it's bone dry, with the exception of this low that's to the south here, south and east, that's going to be guided here into parts of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia this weekend, keeping it cooler because of cloud cover. In fact, it might be one of the coolest Memorial Days in a long time here in the Carolinas and Virginia because of that cloud cover and the rainfall. But it's being promoted by a high pressure cell to the north of it that's shoving the air like that. I'll show you that as well. So nothing really changed. We've kind of kept the same narrative going here, and this was expected. So I wouldn't feel like there was any surprises to this. This has kind of been the narrative going back about 10 to 12 days in the forecast videos. So this morning we did have one problem with this pattern. This is just as the sun was rising. Look how clear the skies end up getting here. Now yesterday, we had all sorts of smoke still in the sky here from those fires for the last 3 weeks that have been in British Columbia and Alberta. And again, as the sun was setting, these are beautiful storms. I could look at this satellite imagery all day and just watching the atmosphere explode here. using the mountains, using the fact that the moisture is getting far enough to the west, using the weak triggers that are the little shortwaves coming over the mountains and the convergence going upslope, and it just pops every single day. These are the most photogenic storms, in my opinion, in the world. But it's important to note two other things. One, there's some fires going in Arizona, one in New Mexico as well. Two, you can see the low that's gathering strength down here. It's not going to be strong, but it's starting to get its act together. That's going to come in this weekend into the Carolinas. And three, the shape of the smoke here is actually tracing out the cold front that did come through. And this morning, those clear skies right in through here after all this incredibly heavy rain. This is an area that's clear skies, dry, and we're having problems now with with frost. And this was a bit surprising because I pulled up the temperatures as I was recording this at 6 a.m. and we were expecting this in this part of Michigan and up here in northeastern Wisconsin in the UP. But this was a surprise. I was looking and seeing this morning that the temperatures bottomed out down here in this part of Wisconsin, which is extremely agriculturally productive. And we did look at the service observations, and there was a 27, 33. This is along I-94. And this is, I'll be honest with you, Wisconsin is an agricultural powerhouse. I know we often think about it, in different ways. Like for me personally, my favorite place in the world is in northern Wisconsin, a little town called Hazelhurst near Minocqua. But when you drive through this state, there is just a tremendous amount of ag. And now you can start to see those fields. And so as you look right here, along I-94, this whole area in through here from Toma up to Clare, these are areas that we saw last night and this morning, the frost. Now, Clare, I guess, got down to about 38, but to the south of that. So I'm concerned what this means because the National Weather Service did not put frost advisories down far that south. So this is not a criticism, of course, but it was something that the atmosphere was capable of doing last night. One thing I want to show you really quickly before I go any farther is I want to come in here and look at let's go to the last 24 hours of precip, just to show you how much rain has been in these storms that have come through parts of the plains and also here out of the west. And then what's gathering over here in the, just off the southeast coast. So that's a quick look at your last 24 hours worth of rainfall. All right, going forward, here it is. This is your next 7 days. No surprises here. Okay, this is just a carbon copy of all the previous forecasts for this week, what the next 7 days are going to look like. And then we get into where the severe weather risk is today. So we're going to light up again that same corridor. Got an enhanced risk down here in New Mexico and Texas. Tomorrow, it's the same area, marginal risk. We then get into Sunday, it's the same area. So we're just going to watch this all weekend long. Now, I do want to note that the National Hurricane Center continues to give this a 10% probability of just developing. It is not a tropical cyclone. It's just a cyclone, but it will be moving into the Carolinas on Saturday and Sunday, adding quite a bit of precip. So let's go take a look at all of these pieces. Now, you'll just watch every day flashes of green that run up like this into here and there. But this is a system we're going to keep a closer eye on here because as we go forward, it curls its way on Saturday morning, getting into Saturday midday and afternoon right into the Carolinas. Some locally very heavy rainfall possible out of this. It's still there on Sunday morning, going here into Monday morning, and that cloud cover and cooler air will just stick around. So storms all weekend long here in the mountains, and this will be the system off the East Coast. If you're not in those three areas, we got a dry week ahead. So we're planning here to next Wednesday and Thursday, and we're trying to see if about 5 to 7 days after the start of the month, we'll get this thing to break down and move forward. But the problem is that when you look out there the next 10 days, this is your probability of getting at least 1 inch of rain. In fact, let's step it up. This is the chance of getting 2 inches of rain. Look at that in here. But the chances of getting less than a ½ inch of rain, let's go find that one. Here it is pretty high throughout much of the Great Lakes Basin. All right. Now, why this rain coming through parts of the Carolinas is so critical is I want to show you the month-to-date precip stats. So this is by climate reporting district. And we do have places in the interior, actually most of North Carolina and Virginia now have had a drier month, so this is critical rain. But notice, look at Michigan, extremely dry throughout much of the central and eastern Corn Belt, very dry May. And look across Nebraska. From one side to the other, we have the fourth wettest, and right now this climate reporting district is reporting, we'll have to actually get the official number here once the month ends, but we're approaching the driest May on record in this area. So just a complete split across the state of Nebraska. By day 10, this will be the most important thing to watch next week. The ridge is here. by June the 5th. And then as we play through the 6th, 7th, and 8th, we've now seen multiple model runs that are pushing the ridge to the west. So this brings heat into the Pacific Northwest. Got the jet stream trying to come around the bottom side of it, and the flow begins to pick up. Notice the spacing of the lines. Those are iso heights, okay? The closer they get together, the faster the winds. This also delivers cooler air to the east with this pattern. But what it does right now, when we look at the forecast for precipitation anomalies, in week 2, we're drier throughout much of the Great Lakes Basin. It's in all 3 of the models here. And we remain wetter in this quarter. So this is just, I feel like I've been talking about this for weeks as being the pattern setting up here. So let's go back to the temperature discussion here, because over the next 7 days, we're going to see a pretty rapid accumulation of GDDs in the north. And again, we pointed this out yesterday, but we have parts of the northern plains that are going to be picking up more GDDs than the Mid-South just in a week. That tells you how warm things are going to be there. And when we look at what that heat is going to do in terms of just yanking moisture out of the ground, this is the 7-day forecast for total evaporation. And we start to see here, in this area, the Red River of the North kind of extending here into the Mississippi Basin, that some of these evaporation rates will exceed 1.5 inches and over 2 inches of total evaporation in a week. So this is one of those scenarios that there will be pockets that experience what we consider to be called flash drought. From there, I want to show you that the CPC, when you look at their week 2 risks, we expect the heat that we're coming in midweek next week to maintain itself into, the 2nd and 3rd, but we're going to knock this heat back pretty quickly after that. And I'd like to show you what those temperatures look like here by going first to the 5-day sliding window of average temperature anomalies. So the hottest time period we're going to watch here next week, all right, is going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The heat's really going to come up in this area. Going to see temperatures getting into the 90s. But as we just play this out, this is day 5 through 10. It's the same story. Cooler than average south, much warmer than average north. That's that weak temperature gradient. But when that ridge begins its shift, watch the Pacific Northwest. Heat comes back in that direction, and it is pulled away from here. This area stays cooler. California stays cooler. The split goes west, and that's why the heat is north and the cooler weather is to the south. And this could be the beginning of the pattern change we need to be observing. But again, we're after June 6th, 7th, and 8th when we're thinking about this. But I want to point out that right now, the latest update from the Climate Prediction Center starts to show the risk from the 4th through the 8th of June for excessive heat being slight in this area. Okay, last couple of things. Just want to give you a global update, excuse me, really quickly here on temperatures. The 2 epicenters of heat in the northern hemisphere are in North America and this part of Russia. But we're quite warm in Europe as well. Spain is showing up cooler, primarily because of heavy rain. That's the same story for this part of India. And there's actually quite a bit of rainfall expected, to kind of finish off spring here in the North China Plain and Manchurian Plain as well. So let's go show you that precipitation. And we can see wetter conditions here, much wetter in Spain. We do have a lot of thunderstorms coming through this region. And in Russia, there's a lot of soft wheat that's grown in this area. We got to watch out for that. Europe is quite dry through this pattern, but take a look. Here's those rains coming in this weekend into early next week, hitting that safrinha crop in South America, the southern stuff, which was planted later. And I think that's going to be critical for the success of that crop. All right, I'll leave it there. I hope you all enjoy this weekend, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks.